welcome to Holistically Speaking. I am Morella DeVoe, your host. Our mission with Holistically Speaking is to be the avenue through which the voices of holistic health reach you at the time you need it most. And you know, we have all sorts of practitioners and guests on the show bringing their own perspectives and views of how to achieve better health, greater vitality through a variety of approaches. And today, it's just me. I've been wanting to talk about allergies since allergy season started this spring. It's a really important topic and there's lots of information to share. So I have a lot of research that I've done on this that I wanted to share with you. And it's a topic that touches me personally because I was a chronic allergy sufferer. And I know that there's a lot that you can do for your allergies that goes beyond the classic just trying to avoid the allergen and taking an antihistamine. For so many of us, we go for sometimes even years relying on antihistamines and trying to rid ourselves of the allergies around us. And in some cases that's possible when there's a very specific allergy that you have. In some cases like food allergies, you can avoid the food. But when it's pollen and grass and ragweed or mold and mites, that's harder to avoid. And we end up feeling that there's nothing that we can do. So I went through years of the chronic nose dripping, the watery eyes, the fits of sneezing that would go on for hours. My allergies got to a point where I had to actually go to bed that night and they wouldn't get better until I slept for a few hours. So I know how experiencing an allergy attack can really drive you to, your wit's end, and they're exhausting. It's really, really tiring to have chronic allergies. So I really care about the subject. As you can see, I am not suffering of chronic allergies anymore. And so I want to share with you what are some of the strategies that you can implement to help yourself overcome some of your allergies. Not all of them may be possible, but they certainly can get better. And a lot of it has to do with how our environment has changed, how our lifestyle has changed, and what all of the changes to our environment have done to our immune system, our levels of inflammation, even our gut. And so managing allergies has everything to do with strengthening your body, strengthening your immune system, lowering the inflammation, and it can take some time. So I'm going to share with you both some long-term strategies of actual strengthening of your body to overcome your allergies on a more permanent basis, and then I'll also have some quick remedies, quick tools that can help you. They certainly have been shown to help a lot of people. So just to put this in perspective, you can probably think back to your childhood, depending on how old you are. But those of us who, in our late 30s, 40s, 50s, we can surely think back to our childhood and know that we did not hear about all these kids having allergies. Our friends did not all have allergies, and our parents didn't have allergies, and our grandparents, I remember none of my grandparents really ever experienced an allergy attack. So what's been happening in our environment that is making allergies more and more prevalent? In fact, I looked up some statistics, and 1 in 5 Americans has allergies. So it's an estimated 50 million of us that suffer from allergies. Allergies are the 5th leading chronic illness or condition in the adult population, and so it's one of the leading causes of work absenteeism and also what they call work presenteeism, where you're actually at work but you're not really fully there. And if you know what an allergy attack feels like, you know that it's hard to be fully present and alert and engaged when you have an allergy attack. And it's the 3rd most common chronic disease amongst children under 18 years old. So it's really highly prevalent with kids, and its estimated cost to our country is $14.5 billion per year in doctor visits, medication, and the loss of productivity of all of us being out with allergies or being at work and not so productive. So it's a big, big deal for all of us as a population, but for you especially, if you're having allergies, you know that this is a big deal in your life, and it's quite miserable. So beyond just trying to avoid the allergen and taking antihistamines, the first thing that I learned that helped me overcome my allergies is that allergies are a faulty immune system response. Your immune system is reacting to something that it shouldn't be reacting to. You know, some pollen, some grass, a strawberry, or you know, some mites. Your immune system is overreactive. And so it's not about suppressing your immune system, but almost like re-educating your immune system and getting your body to have a healthier, better immune system response. And so one of the first things that's interesting to look at if you're curious and want to dig up some of the studies and the research about this is that, interestingly, they've looked at populations of children and adults who grew up on farms or were exposed to farms, and populations of children and adults who grew up in cities. And when they compare the allergy occurrence amongst these two groups, the people who grew up, who were born on farms or brought up on farms, actually have fewer allergies than those who grew up in cities. And so part of what they look at is what's happening, what's the difference in between these two environments. And a lot of it is there's greater exposure actually to bacteria on the farm, you know, bacteria from the animals, from the soils, from interacting with the garden, and there's also a lot of interaction with the pollens and the ragweeds and all of the elements that might give a city dweller the allergy. So the person who grows up on a farm is exposed to all of these bacteria and all of these elements, and it helps to train the immune system on what to react to and what not to react to. And what's really interesting is that in the study of what they call the biome, the human biome, it's all of the live bacteria inside your body, is that a really, really healthy immune system has a very diverse ecosystem of bacteria inside the intestinal gut and the intestinal tract and throughout your body. So the people who grew up on farms have a wider array of healthy bacteria, a better population of that healthy bacteria that actually constitutes the first line of defense of your immune system. So those bacteria in your intestines might detect little parasites or bad bacteria or viruses, and they're like your first line of your troops that starts to decode them and neutralize them. So the people growing up on farms had a broader array, better exposure to them, and tend to be more resistant to having allergies. They don't develop as many allergies. One really interesting piece of research is actually looking at children whose moms were exposed to farms and farm animals or lived on farms while they were pregnant for the babies. So maybe the babies never lived on a farm, but the mothers did. Those babies who were in the belly when the mom was in the farm have a lower incidence of allergies. So it really starts to tell us that our exposure to these natural environments where there's this whole ecosystem of bacteria and pollens and things coexisting, and we're with it, we develop a much healthier adaptability to it. And so it also starts to point out that in our urban settings where we've become much more removed from those, all of those live elements, and also where we're more likely to be over-sanitizing our environment and using antibacterial soaps and counter disinfectants and antibacterial everything, people who tend to use more of those sanitizing products tend to have a less well-informed immune response, if you will, and in some cases have a greater incidence of allergies. So the first thing to take away is that your allergy reactions are a misinformed immune system, and that the first thing that you can do towards that is to re-educate your immune system. And one important step in that is the repopulation of your digestive tract with those live bacteria that create that broad ecosystem of friendly flora. And the most basic way to start doing that is through eating fermented foods, like the ancestral fermented foods like raw sauerkrauts, or making your own fermented, your own cultured yogurt would be the best kind of yogurt that you could have. Kefir is another popular cultured drink that you can find as well. But these really live, indigenous, kind of ancestral foods that we used to eat were an important way in which we would reseed our intestinal flora. Of course, in modern times, we also now have probiotics, so that's also something that you could consider. You could talk to your doctor, your naturopath, your chiropractor, and see what they might suggest. So probiotics are a great way to help repopulate your intestinal tract and get a healthier immune response. And especially if you've been someone who's taken, lots of courses of antibiotics over time, that's something that I would highly recommend that you consider and talk to your doctor about. So starting with your intestinal tract, rebuilding that healthy intestinal flora, that's one basic step. The other piece is, what do you feed healthy intestinal flora? And what your gut bacteria love is fiber, the rich compounds from fruits and vegetables. So this is what we would call prebiotics. So taking prebiotics, you can find prebiotic capsules, and those are great. But things like mushrooms and aloe vera and the skins of fruit and all of the non-starchy fibrous vegetables like kale and chard, all of these fibers give that healthy bacteria the stuff that they thrive on. So probiotics and then prebiotics are what help to start strengthening that intestinal flora. The other piece that is critical in the, let's call it the re-education of your immune system, is vitamin D. And we know that in the northern climate of Vermont, we don't get a whole lot of sun exposure throughout the year, of course. And then what we do get in the summer is kind of short. And if you watched the show with our naturopath, Dr. Warnock, he said that he has yet to find a Vermonter who is not deficient in vitamin D if they're not supplementing. So essentially, some of our well-respected physicians and naturopaths in town are finding that many, many of us are deficient in vitamin D. And so that vitamin D deficiency, one of the ways in which it shows up is that our immune system is not as strong. And so it would show up as having a flu during the flu season, getting colds, catching that frequent cold during the winter. And it can also look as a greater propensity to have allergies, or your allergies even increasing. So supplementing with vitamin D is another important step to get a healthier immune response all across the board, whether it's for the flu and flu season in the winter, or for allergy season, spring through the fall. The next thing with helping your body to have a much healthier reaction to the allergens around you has to do with managing your stress. There is ample evidence that the more stressed we are, typically the more our allergies tend to increase. So we know that stress affects everything. One of the ways in which stress affects your body is that a lot of the stress we experience it in what we call the enteric nervous system, which is the neurons lining your intestinal gut. A lot of the jitters, the butterflies, the anxiety that you might feel associated with stress, it happens a lot in all of the nervous system cells that are actually lining your gut. And so if your immune system starts in your gut, any stress, any tension is going to affect your gut. It's going to affect your immune system, your digestive system, and as a result of that, it's going to affect the way that you absorb foods, that you absorb nutrients, and if your immune system, as we've already established, begins in your gut. If your gut is struggling, then your immune system is going to be affected. So that's just a quick insight into how stress might be making your allergies worse. So managing stress is hugely important. Practicing breathing, practicing relaxation, practicing yoga, taking breaks, cultivating leisure, cultivating pleasure are essential to helping you manage your stress. And then a third step, going back to the physiology of your body, is addressing inflammation. So the other perspective on allergies is that an allergic reaction is an inflammation reaction. And you could probably relate to this. Let's say that you have an allergic reaction on your skin. That skin is inflamed, it's red, maybe it's itchy, heated. If you have sinus allergies, you can probably feel the irritation inside your nasal passages. If you have watery eyes, you might have redness, and all of these are signs of inflammation. So it's like inflamed tissues. And so helping your body to reduce that inflammatory response is going to be another way in which you support your body to manage your allergies better. So there are a couple herbs that are particularly wonderful for managing inflammation that I am aware of. One is turmeric, or also known as curcumin. So turmeric is that yellow spice that makes curry, that gives curry its deep yellow color. It's a root. If you find it at your health food store, I've seen it around here. It looks like ginger. It's smaller than ginger, but it has that kind of brownish tan skin. But on the inside, it's bright, bright orange. In and of itself, it doesn't taste very strongly. It doesn't have much of a taste. So if you have a juicer, you can juice turmeric into it, put it through your juicer, and it's going to give you all of the wonderful power of turmeric in a very absorbable way. And turmeric is a powerful anti-inflammatory herb. I've seen it with clients, helping them relieve their arthritis pain almost overnight and having swelling and inflammation come down just from the use of turmeric. And it's also been seen to help with allergies. You can also get it as a supplement. And if not that, you can also become a fan of eating curry and adding lots of curry to your diet. The other herb that is known and well documented to help with inflammation is Siberian ginseng. So you can also get that as a supplement and add that into your repertoire of self-care. Another long-term strategy for allergy management you probably have heard of is related to the use of raw honey. And there's lots of debate. You probably look it up online, and some people say it works, and some people say it's a myth, that it doesn't really work at all. But if you dig deeper into some of the research, what is interesting to find is that it seems to be very dependent on the type of allergy you have and what specific pollen, for example, you might be reacting to. So one study that was really confirming of the raw honey practice or therapy was people who have birch pollen allergies, and they were able to very specifically determine that. If they had birch pollen allergies and they took the honey made from birch trees, from birch flowers, that honey was definitely helpful in helping to re-educate their immune system and not react to the birch pollen anymore and reduce those allergy symptoms. So the honey is only really going to work if it's being made, if the honeys are picking up the pollen from the plants that are giving you the allergy. Because what's happening then is by consuming the honey, you're essentially educating your digestive system and saying this is an okay substance. The gut bacteria decode it, analyze it, and then you don't have a response to it when you eat it, and you're less likely to then respond to it when you breathe it. But if you don't know exactly what your allergy is to, and then therefore you're not sure that the honey that you're eating is somewhat related to your allergy, then it might not work. And it absolutely needs to be, at the very minimum, it needs to be honey from the area where you live in, where you're more likely to find a honey that includes the flowers that you're reacting to. So really interesting research on that, and it helps to hear that because it quiets some of the debate. The other piece, if you're a parent, if you're a mother or father and you have a baby who you're breastfeeding, or if you're a pregnant, expecting parent, breastfeeding has shown to help develop children who are less likely to suffer from allergies. And it has to do a little bit with that same principle of the farm, the mom that was on the farm, that breastfeeding is the first way in which babies are going to start getting the bacteria that inhabit their guts. And so if the mom is really healthy and has really good healthy bacteria throughout her system, her baby is going to be getting that through the breast milk, and that's how babies start to seed their intestines with healthy bacteria. So babies that are not breastfed don't get that benefit, and so are more likely, that's one way in which they're more likely to develop allergies later on. So let's talk about experiencing some immediate relief, because everything that I've talked about so far is about long-term strategies, not the immediate remedies. But there are a few remedies that you might try if you're having allergies right now. The first one is getting a Neti Pot. You may be familiar with Neti Pots. If not, you can find them at the health food stores. They're like they almost look like a little tea kettle. It's an opening, a little vase with an opening to pour water in, and then a little spout. And that spout is essentially to rinse your nostrils. So you would fill the Neti Pot, importantly, with distilled water only. You do not want to use tap water. I wouldn't even recommend using well water. You really want pure, clean water with no bacteria, and especially no chlorine or any chemicals that might be added into your water. So distilled water only, and you'll get at the health food store essentially what they call Neti Pot salts. So it's a very finely ground salt. You would put about 1/8 of a teaspoon into the Neti Pot, dissolve it, and then rinse your sinuses with that salt water. So there's a very specific technique that you can look up online. There are even videos on how to use a Neti Pot to rinse out your sinuses. The first time you do it is a little bit weird, but then you get used to it. And with Neti Pot use, typically the people who experience relief of for their allergies with Neti Pots, they're using it on a daily basis and sometimes twice a day. So part of it is relieving the inflammation in the sinus passages. It's also clearing, any of the allergens that might be stuck there. So it's regular use during the allergy season and at least twice a day. If you can do it twice a day, you might notice a more significant benefit. The next remedy that seems to have some results for some people has to do with herbs. Herbs like stinging nettles, which actually can give people an allergic reaction and that itchiness. If you eat them or infuse them in tea, you make a tea out of them, they show some promise for allergy relief. The same thing for golden seal, eucalyptus, and butterbur. Eucalyptus especially, it helps to soothe the nasal passages, the mucus lining of your nasal passages. And so whether it's breathing it or making a eucalyptus tea, you can use eucalyptus oil, for example, in your bath, or a hot water, kind of cleansing of your nasal passages by just breathing the hot water steam with eucalyptus oil, and that seems to be soothing and helps some people with their allergies. The next one is a homeopathic remedy. So taking histaminum, there are these little pellets that you can find also at the health food store. I would also recommend talking to your homeopath about whether that in combination with other things would be helpful to you. But there are these little pellets, you typically put 5 or 6 under your tongue, and that has shown to help people with, especially if you catch it early, if you are doing it regularly or catch your allergy symptoms early and you take the pellets, it can help with the allergy symptoms. And there are also other allergy relief tablets that are homeopathic that you can find at the health food store, and you take them, say, one every 30 minutes or so until the symptoms subside. The next step in allergy relief has to do with avoiding the things that negatively affect your immune system. And that namely is sugar, refined foods, processed foods, a lot of the fried foods. All of these things negatively affect your immune system. They negatively affect your gut bacteria, that first line of defense of your immune system. The sugars in particular help to feed yeasts and bacteria that are not the healthy kind. And so you start to have an out of balance immune system response. So staying away from the sugar, in some cases, staying away from excess starches is essential for strengthening your immune system response. So to sum it up again, I'll bring it back to my own personal story. So I was struggling with chronic allergies that would go days at a time without end. It got to a point where antihistamines weren't really helping so much. And so I used some of the quick remedies like the homeopathic pellets and the Neti Pot and the herbs, which helped a little bit. But then I had to rebuild my immune system gradually through adding probiotics, taking a vitamin D supplement, and helping my immune system get stronger and stronger, reducing the sources of inflammation in my diet, and increasing the anti-inflammatory response of my body with things, for example, that I haven't mentioned yet, like fish oil. Omega-3 fats are an essential way in which, are an essential tool, an essential way in which your body helps to reduce inflammation. So taking fish oil as a supplement, or flaxseed oil, eating lots of fish. Sardines are particularly a great source of omega-3 fats, because the smaller the fish, the less likely that you will have a fish that's loaded with heavy metals. And eating walnuts is another powerful anti-inflammatory food that you can add to your diet, also a source of omega-3s, and adding lots of color to your diet. So in my case, I added all of these anti-inflammatory elements, and I also cut back on the pro-inflammatory things that I was eating, which in my case wasn't so much sugar, it was mostly lots of starch. I was eating more starch than I needed, lots of grains, and I didn't need to eat that many breads, whole grains, as I was eating. I substituted that for more color vegetables, deeply colored vegetables, greens, etc., that help to bring my inflammation down. So I've covered a lot of different suggestions, different recommendations. I invite you to check out websites like Mercola.com. That's a website by Dr. Joseph Mercola. Mercola.com has a lot of information on the subject. Naturalnews.com is another one that has great information. You can look up allergies. Naturopathic.org is a website, obviously, that presents all sorts of naturopathic information. And so you can look up allergies there as well. It's naturopathic.org. And finally, the fourth one that I find is a great source of resources on any health topic is johnbarron.com. And John is Jon Barron, BARRON.org. So those are four of my favorite websites. Again, Mercola.com, John Barron, JONBARRON.com, naturalnews.com, and naturopathic.org. And you can look up allergies on there and find lots more suggestions that might help you with your allergies. So I hope you found this useful. I hope that it will help you in your managing your allergies on a regular basis, on a kind of needing a quick remedy, and then also helping you create a healthier immune system that will help you manage your allergies over time. Take care. I'll see you next time.